Hello, everyone, and welcome to Griplock, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor. Connor's out of town because it's July 4th. Happy July 4th, everyone. Hopefully you are enjoying a day of cookouts and fireworks and celebration.
We're here.
Yeah.
Because we got to give you the news.
We have to talk about disc golf. Yeah. USWDGC went down. What a weekend for USWDGC. US Women's on July 4th.
It was fun.
So US Women's went down this past weekend. We'll cover all of that. Update our FPO power rankings, which we're going to have to debate live on air because we haven't done it yet intentionally. Because really there's only one decision to be made. Mm-hmm. And then Trevor's trivia. And then we'll wrap out the show with just a little talksy-walksy.
Little talksy-walksy, as you do.
That's a new phrase. But USWDGC, we had the results here. Haley King taking it down, fighting off a charging Valerie Mandejano, who ended up in second place. And then Owen Scoggins was able to round out the top three there. Some storylines from this weekend. This is a very bright spot on an otherwise somewhat bleak season for Haley, realistically.
Very bleak season.
She is a player who it's not surprising to see her win because she has such great talent, but she just typically isn't able to put it all together.
Yeah, it's like I was surprised, but when you factor in that she's playing in her home state, that helps. But then also, when you take like a really big step back and get away from this season that has been bad, like you realize, like you watch her play. Like, I mean, if you wiped my mind of all knowledge of the FPO division and then you just put that on TV in front of me, I'd be like, well, yeah, like she looks like the most athletic one out there. She throws the disc really well, solid putt. Like she looks like she belongs, and we know that she's talented. It's just been not a good season, and yeah, she typically makes too many mistakes. I'm sure the comfort of being in her home state, maybe that's just what she needed to kind of cancel out the mental part of her game that she was struggling with, and it led to what we would expect, which is her being competitive and ultimately winning. I'm always for more competitors towards the top of the division, so I hope this is the confidence boost that she needs to continue competing throughout the rest of the season, because we like seeing more competitors. So I'm happy for it. It was a great win.
Yeah, it's a great performance
and very impressive because she went down. She lost her lead pretty early in the last round there and dug herself out of it very quick, and that was impressive because she could have folded. Yeah,
we've seen a lot of players in similar situation this year fold in that type of situation where they're up. They lose it early and then just never bounce back.
Did you hear the statistic they were throwing out there? It was that only one time in the history of major championships in the FPO division, this speaks to the lack of parity in that division more than anything. Only one time has a player come back from a 2-stroke or more deficit.
I heard
in
that.
2015. 2 strokes in golf is nothing. It's one hole, and you saw it. Her lead was erased almost immediately. But that stat blew my mind. That right there just tells you how much the game has started to change, because I think we're going to see more of that start to happen as years go on, like consistently. Because I was like, only once? Like, you're telling me nobody? But that's because back then, and in years past, there was nobody was challenging the top players, and if it was their tournament, it was their tournament.
Yeah.
So that was crazy for
me. That is a wild stat.
Val almost stomped on that.
Yeah. She was back 6 strokes going to the final round.
She was charging.
But speaking a little bit, Haley obviously had been open about, different, taking a step away from the game, different stuff like that, different breaks she's had to take. But what was interesting is I hadn't really heard this fully, but in the Jomez profile of Haley King, when it was leading up, she was talking about like this off season and stuff like that. And she took a slight shot at Discraft, it seemed. She didn't name it.
Oh, it wasn't slight. It was slight until she said, when I joined Innova.
Yeah, because she was talking about how, the past several seasons she just hasn't felt like the support from people behind her, and she hasn't felt like people had her back and all of this. Yeah. Which, like, then you're listening and you're like, that could be friends, that could be family, that could be anyone. Then she goes, and then I joined Innova.
Yeah, it's like,
and it was like, oh, okay. So I thought that was very interesting. Someone actually DM'd us and sent me the link to that because I was watching live, so I wouldn't have caught it if it wasn't for that DM. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting because, one thing to be said about Innova is obviously we've on this podcast talked about the monetary support of players and stuff like that from Innova's side, letting Rick go, seeing several of the MPO players step away and stuff like that. I have noticed at several tournaments this year, and I noticed it again this weekend, that high up reps from Innova tend to caddy at almost every event.
Yeah,
in some capacity. Like Jeff Panis, Kona's dad, I believe he's the marketing director. He's at least high up in marketing at Innova. And I've seen him on the bag for whichever Innova Pro is on lead or chase card multiple times throughout the season.
Yeah.
Then at this event, I also saw Jonathan Poole out there, who was like the team manager for Innova. He was on someone's bag. Jennifer Allen is obviously just a sponsored player, but she has been with Innova for a long time. And kind of has a like mentorship type of a role.
Just went there to casually win Masters by 10 strokes.
Yeah, she has dominated Masters. But after her Masters win, she was out there with the lead card doing UDIS scoring live. So we can say what we want about like the monetary backing and stuff like that. I do think that speaks a lot to how you support a player. But when it comes to like rubber meeting the road, in like some situations, you do see Innova supporting their players in ways that other companies don't always. But another company, I will say this, Dynamic, I see Eric McCabe out there caddying for some player pretty much anytime he's in town.
Yeah. It's very interesting because all we've heard recently is Innova doesn't support their players. And, you know, granted, that was coming from... A lot of that came from like the Rick stuff, and that does tie a lot more to a monetary because you know a player like Rick was out for a huge contract and probably just wasn't getting it, and that's probably where he feels that. But that's a lot of the narrative we've heard, and it's tough to say, you know, when you're not really in the middle of it, what exactly is going on and what kind of support, because every player is looking for support in a different way.
Yeah.
Some players just want to have the monetary trust. Like, you need to trust me to perform and sell discs and whatever, and like I need that. Some players want to feel like a close relationship with their sponsor, and some certain companies do a way better job at that than others. I know for a fact that I've heard players praise DGA. I've heard players praise Dynamic for that, and also Infinite. Eric Oakley had a lot of high praise for them.
Well, I've heard a lot of high praise for Discraft though as well.
Yeah, it's
which is where that one's. That's where I'm wondering if it comes from the type of support a player needs.
That's what I'm saying. I think
if it's just like
some players just probably aren't good fits.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Well, it could be too. Like, a lot of what you do and deal with is your team manager.
Yeah.
So there could just be some situations where
there's a fallout or whatever.
Well, not necessarily a fallout, but like a team manager at Innova or Prodigy or Discraft or whoever, and a player might just not have a lot in common, or might just not be able to get along. Whereas like another player might be like a spitting image and they're best buds, right. And so then it might be something where you get the same amount of support, but it's like in a different way where he doesn't feel it.
The Haley King situation is interesting because if you go all the way back to when the rumors started to stir and when she was leaving, we were suspecting that this is before the Katrina deal was announced, and we were suspecting that it had something to do with that. We were like, oh, is room being cleared for Katrina?
Yeah, like cap room.
Or is Katrina just be giving a bigger deal than Haley, and that's why she wants to leave? Like, we were very much like not thinking, because like in our minds back then, before, like, forget Haley King starting off with a bad season this year. Back then, Haley King was still like
she was fresh off
top talent. Like
she won like 2 or 3 Pro Tours last year.
She was last year what Val is this year, which is like the top talent, you know, sign her to a big deal, lock her down type player. And in our mind, like her re-sign,
there was no
Discraft,
reason for her to leave.
Yeah, it was like she's probably going to get a good bit of money.
Well, I don't even think her contract was up.
No, it wasn't. I think she had another year left.
Yeah, because if you think back to it as well, it was during the time they just released those Stalkers to celebrate her performance the previous year.
Yeah,
and we still had them on her shelf when the announcement happened that she was leaving.
I guess
and it was a very weird time.
And she could have been negotiating an extension, and that's where things went sour. I mean, it's hard to imagine that that's not where the disconnect was. You know, it's when it comes down to it, like if you pay a player, they're going to be happy.
Yeah.
So and it's tough to say because, like, you know, Discraft's been throwing a lot of money around. They did sign Dickerson, you know, so maybe that's where they decided to allocate, and Haley wasn't happy about that. It's impossible to know. We probably never will because she sort of dragged them through the mud, but ultimately didn't, you know, give any specifics.
No.
So,
I just thought that was a very interesting point to bring up. But in the final round, we did have Valerie Mandejano pushing very hard from the chase card. I believe she had like 7 birdies in a row.
Yep.
Ended it with a bogey.
Yeah.
A questionable bogey because
got too aggressive.
that was the one where she was like 80 feet, 100 feet out and ran it and then missed the comeback putt.
It was a heat check. It was a heat check.
She almost threw it in.
Yeah.
When it came out of her hand, as soon as she like threw it, my first reaction was no. Then it was halfway there. I was like, that's in. Yeah. And then it like hyzered. I was like, dang it.
It was definitely one of those moments where you've just, you haven't missed anything for so long. You're like,
you just feel like you can't miss.
Yeah, and you also in your mind you know that you're chasing somebody down because if she's in a lead there or closer than she was, she probably doesn't run it.
Yeah, well, she said in her post-round interview that her goal was 12 under that round. She thought 12 under would win it.
Yeah,
it would have.
Turns out she needed 10 to force a playoff.
If she didn't bogey, she had 2 bogeys on her round. If she went par there and shot 11, she would have won.
That would have been such a sick comeback. Something that's interesting now is like Val is having this crazy season, and it stirred up a lot of people talking about her contract because obviously dynamic. Essentially, I mean you don't want to be mean about it, but they chose wrong. They gave Kona the huge contract, and it seems at this moment. Things change very quickly in disc golf, but at this moment, it seems that money would have been better spent on Val.
Well, it's just, the only thing that's tough that you don't know.
Certainly from a talent standpoint.
From a talent standpoint, yes. 100%. That one everyone can see, everyone can know. What you don't know is behind the scenes,
what kind of plastic?
Kona moving plastic like no other.
Right, that is tough.
That's the only thing. We can only see the Tour Series stuff that hits our shelves, and ours are skewed because we have Valerie on our team. But it's pretty competitive.
It's so tough. It's just hard from like a company standpoint. Like Dynamic sees it. They're not blind dummies.
Yeah.
So like they're feeling that, and Kona is probably feeling that pressure, and it's really hard on her.
Yeah.
Because obviously she's not throwing. Like she's trying to play well, and like there's a lot of pressure on her. It's just very interesting because I don't know. It's hard to know what kind of contract Val signed. She certainly her value has skyrocketed because I would argue right now, she's probably the third most valuable player on the market, third or fourth, based on her age and how well she's playing right now. So I would wonder if she had any kind of renegotiation clause after a year because, man, she could be up for some big money. We'll see. Yeah,
it's very interesting. I think part of it, going back to the Kona contract, Val contract, because they both got signed in this offseason.
Yeah.
Val's was drastically overshadowed by Kona's because of the value, obviously.
Right, yeah.
Makes sense. But one of the big things was during the contract announcement, Kona, I distinctly remember it being...
She was in a helicopter.
Yes. No, I distinctly remember it being more of a player contract. Like she was basically saying like they believe in me more as a player and less as a media asset.
She played well last year.
She did.
To some
extent.
extent.
I'm wondering this year, some of it might just be because I think basically this year in my head starts off tons of pressure, $500,000 contract on the line, all this stuff, plus new plastic. When you're in the mix of learning new discs, you just don't have the same confidence for a short period.
Yeah.
Then you come out, you have a rough start, all the rumors start, then the pressure builds even more. Not rumors, but all the people start talking. Pressure builds even more. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's just a big thing of Kona, I think, going into the season, could have had a very similar season to Val. But if you look at coming into the season, Val didn't really have too many eyes on her.
No.
She didn't really have many people talking about her. People knew she was good. People knew that she was an up-and-comer, but no one was expecting her to do great things. Kona, on the other hand, was in a similar boat last year, up-and-comer. No one really, when she did good, it was great. When she did bad, and no one really expected a lot, performance-wise, consistently.
Excellent point.
Then you get that contract, and they're both very similar players coming into the year, both switching from Innova to DD, coming into the year, and then one has all the pressure of the world on them to perform, and the other one is just like, hey, if you perform, great. If you don't, you're the only one's gonna be telling yourself that you suck, basically.
Yeah.
Versus Kona has the whole world looking at her.
Yeah.
And I think that it might just be some of it is obviously talent and all this stuff that goes into it, but I think a lot of it might just be the environment behind the play. That one player is able to just go out, play their game, not have to worry about what people say or think, and the other player has the pressure of this massive contract on their shoulders.
It is very true, and luckily for Kona, and we're not helping the cause right now. But the talk will and already has started to simmer down. Because once it happens for so many weeks where you're just not in contention, new storylines appear. People are going to forget about it. And then you're going to have the opportunity for the pressure to kind of alleviate a little bit. Now, even without media pressure, she's still got to, talk to her team manager every day, knowing that they're the ones that are paying. Like, she's got to see those pay stubs go through, knowing that she's being paid. Like,
I think the tough part at this point now is once you've been under a microscope for so long.
Yeah.
Even when you're outside of that microscope, you are now like in your own microscope because like you've heard all these things be said about you. Like it's a question of like how much does she believe is true at this point.
I really hope she can dig herself out of it. It's going to be very tough, but I'm sure it'll only take a good finish or two. Yeah. And she's got to start one good event at a time and build some momentum and figure out that like you can do it. Like you can still play. It's it's not impossible.
If we've seen anything over the past few years, my prediction. Here we go.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know why. If we've seen anything over the past few years, I think Kona wins Throw Pink Women's. Or not Throw Pink Women's. I think Kona wins the Pro Tour Championship at the end of the year. And it just rights the ship. Going into the offseason, she comes off that. And, like...
That is... I would be willing to bet a large sum that does not happen.
I don't think it would happen. But I'm just saying the storyline would make complete sense. Because, like, if you look at past winners, Haley King, at that time... She wasn't having a great season 2 years ago. End up winning the Pro Tour Championship. Missy Gannon last year went Throw Pink Women, Pro Tour Championship, and then won Player of the Year because it was a very recency bias where it's like, oh, wow, she's the best player right now. She wasn't.
Imagine that.
But that's what happened, right? Boom, boom. And so it kind of makes sense. On the MPO side, you just had Nathan Queen win. Like the Pro Tour Championship's a big title, but it's very random.
It is super random, yes.
So
throw your name in the mix.
Kona walks away with it.
Your odds are better than they would be at a normal event.
Kona walks away with it.
Is she going to qualify for the...
Surely. Top 16? Absolutely.
I don't think so.
No, yeah. It's only the top 16.
We're gonna
Surely.
Hold on. Little early Trevor's trivia. I got it right here. Let's look at the rankings. Because it's top 16?
It's top 16 for FPL.
Where do you think she sits at right now?
15.
Let's look.
Oh, gosh. That's a lot of scrolling.
She's in 20th.
Ooh.
Right now, she qualifies in the last spot for the play-in.
Yeah, so they have that play-in for the 16th spot.
Right now, she's in the and she is in that spot.
What a Cinderella story it's going to be.
She's in that spot by 0.3 points over Jessica Weiss. So
what a Cinderella story it's going to be when she wins from the playoff, when she wins from the play-in spot to the champion.
How funny is that? It's like you're like, yeah, I'm a predictor to win, and she doesn't even qualify.
Well,
what is she? She's coming 29th, 33rd, 18th, 10th, 4th, 8th, 16th, DNF, 13th, 17th, 13th, 28th, 39th at this most recent event. That is bad.
That's a very bad season.
I thought it was going to start trending up, and then she went 28th, 39th.
Yeah, that's a rough season.
Oh, man. Kona, dang it.
Okay. Well, while we're on a sad mood, it's almost like this past weekend, Haley and Paige flipped spots to a certain extent. So Haley wins, obviously. Very great tournament from Haley. But Paige was having a very good season leading up to it and then finished 21st at this tournament. And there's no real reason, I think, for this to happen. Like, in my opinion, I saw some people being like, oh, like, she can't have an off weekend. No, she can. But an off weekend, I think, for Paige Pierce should still be like top 10.
Yeah.
Maybe top 15. We can give her top 15.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Especially these courses, we're going to talk about them a little bit more. They didn't have, like, if you were able to get in the fairway, you were making pars most of the time, at least.
I've got the stats here.
I was very shocked to see. I think she was mentally checked out before it started because in the interview, the pre-round interview, there was like the Celebrity Pro-Am the day before. B, in the pre-round interview, she was talking about the courses and how she felt like it just didn't challenge the FPO field, which as soon as you say a course isn't challenging, you're going to shoot bad.
Was the day before?
Yeah, it was Wednesday, and the tournament started on Thursday.
Oh, my. What an awful move by the Pro Tour. That's atrocious.
Yeah, I think it was just because they were in Wisconsin, and they just, like, it was the only time they could fit it in. Because Katrina Allen went...
How's somebody talking about that? They scheduled a Pro-Am before a major.
They didn't have to play.
Yeah, I'm just saying like so far I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour scheduled 3 things that were dumb this year.
One was on
the Super Bowl Sunday. That
All-Star Weekend.
That was pretty dumb. The second one was on. They had a major on Easter.
That wasn't the Pro Tour though.
That was a major. Yeah, that wasn't the
match
Pro Tour.
play. It was match play was more the location they scheduled it.
Yeah,
was tough.
I'll give them like 2.5 points for bad scheduling. This one's probably the most criminal though. Like that's pretty unfortunate.
Well, because what's criminal about it is like.
It was right before.
Well, you hate to say it, but if this was a World or a major where MPO was playing,
it wouldn't.
The Pro-Am isn't happening right
Yeah.
then, or it's happening on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be completely wrong. They might still would have done it, but
no.
I just don't
Not
see
the
it.
day before, nobody would have played.
That's what I'm saying. No one plays.
Yeah.
But
I'm surprised.
Katrina Allen chose on Monday, Tuesday to play in a golf event, an actual like traditional golf event, and then Wednesday had the Celebrity Pro-Am. And then Thursday started the major.
And then, came
in
like
fourth.
Fourth, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real athlete right there, Paige. Take that. That's hysterical.
But, yeah, I mean.
I wonder how she did in the golf event. What was that about?
It was like something with her. She said a high school friend invited her to come play some, like.
That's hysterical.
Some event.
What?
But, where was it? Oh, but in the interview beforehand, she was talking about how the courses she felt like didn't really challenge all of this stuff. And then just went out and didn't play well.
And then the courses challenged her.
Yeah.
She just doesn't like. Just say what you mean,
well,
Paige.
You
don't like wooded courses.
She also said, well, these weren't even that wooded.
You
they
don't
were more
like
like
short
park style
technical courses.
Yeah. She also said it won't surprise me if an AM wins this weekend because like there's no separation out here, which that's a fair statement.
Plenty of separation for everybody else, just not you.
Well, no, but here's the thing: is like a course with no separation. Does that mean like we have a weekly at the shortest course in the area, pitch and putt? Could an intermediate player show up and win? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could shoot 14, 15 under, right? But a very good player is always going to shoot 12 or 13. Always.
You're still going to shoot
You're still going to be in the mix.
You might get beat by a worse player, but you're going to shoot decently.
Yeah, you might lose by 4 or 5 strokes. You're not going to come in 21st.
Yeah, she was 14 strokes off of the pace. That is so far.
Over 4 rounds, that's what? Like almost 4 strokes a round.
A little over 3.
That's not happening if it's just like, well, I played really good, but like there's no separation out here.
Yeah.
No.
And another problem I have, like I'm okay to play that card when it's super random, but all the other good players to me seemed like they were near the top.
Yeah, they were all up there.
So what are we doing? I have the stats here. I was doing some math because I am very anti birdie or die course. However, I do think especially the second course at this event wasn't too bad. And also, I'm starting to think for the FPO field, because there's such a distance gap between like the very top few players and the rest, that for more entertaining golf, it might be best to play these style of courses. So I have some stats here just to kind of show the difference between this tournament and the last one they played, which is the Preserve. Now, keep in mind, this is over 2 courses at the USWDGC, but same idea for both. So for the USWDGC, there was 9 holes averaged over par on average for the event. So for all 4 rounds, it was averaging half the holes would average over par. To give you a comparison, at the Preserve, that number was 11.3. So a little over 2 more holes would average over par for the event. Not crazy, but, it's something. This is where it gets a little more significant, and this is because of the lack of OB more than anything, I think. At USWDGC, you had, for the entire event, you had a 17.75% bogey or worse scores taken, and then for the Preserve, you had 24.6% bogey or worse, considerably higher. And then you had a 22.75% birdie percentage at the USWDGC compared to only a 17.6% birdie percentage at the Preserve. So that is where you see the difference, particularly in the worse than bogey category. Because at this course, I mean, you were seeing like a couple double bogey or worse taken like every day. Like it was like 1% or less each day. Like it's when there's no OB, you pretty much can't take double bogeys unless you miss a short putt. Like that's what it was coming down to. So it's very interesting because I I'm not really a huge fan of these types of courses because as much as like you can there is going to be some scoring separation over the course of the entire event, but you want there to be a good amount of separation, like hole by hole.
You want there to be a chance for a 2-stroke swing.
Exactly.
Or a 3-stroke swing.
Yeah, you need there to be multiple stroke swings, especially on hole 18. That kind of stunk. So that's where I think it gets me the most, but it is tough also because like it is entertaining and like the more players of that division can handle a course like that.
Well, that's what you have to look at it from two different perspectives because a tournament like what we just watched is going to make a better product for the fans pretty much every time because there's more birdies to be had. There's less mistakes that are going to be made. Is it slightly more boring because you can tell the players aren't being challenged? Absolutely. But what it does is the finish is going to be thrilling pretty much every time.
Yeah.
The downside of that is it creates a thing where like it's hard for you want a course where it challenges players to where the best player has an advantage. Like the best player deserves an advantage.
The problem is right now there's this in the FPO field. There's this weird thing where like a lot of times that effect that we want the best player to win effect only applies to the players who can throw far.
Yeah.
So like because in the MPO field now recently Double G and Simon have had some success players like that, but they all throw very far. All those top players. And that is definitely just being able to mash at certain courses will help you a bit, but it's not going to be like the game changer in the FPO field. At a lot of the courses, it's a massive game changer aside from any of the other things. So that's where it gets difficult. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where I stand because I thought I did, but I'm not completely
Well, I think the tough part, I think, is right now, man. Because, like, right now, for the most part, the Pro Tour, the FPO just plays a shortened version of the MPO course, which isn't bad. But when you're doing that, the MPO, the design is laid out so from the MPO, they're challenged with OB and stuff like that. So when FPO's moved up, pretty much the only thing that you can do to make the FPO course harder is the distance aspect because you can't. The FPO landing zones might be similar to MPO, but if you're throwing from 450 or 500 feet to a landing zone versus you're throwing from 300 feet to a landing zone, the distance separation is drastically different because in MPO, if you're throwing, let's just say 450 to a landing zone from a tee to a landing zone, everyone is using some form of a driver.
Yeah.
Right? On FPO, if you go to 300 feet, that is some players' max flex distance, and then that some players' mid.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's a drastic difference because then what it does is even though 300 feet, every player in that field can pretty much achieve that, at least every player in the top like 15 or 20, how they achieve it is so drastically different that like a player like Paige or Cat, it gives them a much bigger advantage the distance because of they can control the disc landing. So that's where right now distance is such a big separator. But when you come to a course like this, it takes the distance separation out. Yeah. So it's just plain. Yeah. That side's great. The issue of this course was there was no chance to blow up.
Yeah.
Because if your disc hyzered into the woods, where the wood's thick, but they were so thick that you weren't going in the woods.
Right.
So you were on the edge. So you just straddled out.
A lot of shots were getting knocked down the edge.
You straddled out, threw a little pitch up, and you might bogey. But a lot of times you could still save par, or there were some of the par fours where you could throw far enough up there and just let it just get distance. It didn't matter where it landed. Then just pitch up for your birdie, and it was easy. Yeah. There just wasn't a lot of chances for swings to happen, and they're also just the par was just not the par was soft, but the course was just soft in general. That I feel like it didn't let the top players display, because I think at the end of the day, with how players played this weekend, our top three probably would have looked very similar. Yeah. Owen was playing very solid, Val was playing very solid, Haley was playing very solid, and all three of them can compete on pretty much any course out there. Owen, if there was a lot of distance, might have slipped down, but those three players, that's not a weird top three to me, talent-wise. They're very capable. Yeah. But I think it would have looked slightly different if hole 18, for instance, had a bunch of OB. Yeah. And there is pressure on Haley going into it. And Val sitting in the clubhouse, one stroke ahead of her, where she can't bogey or whatever. And a lot of stuff just, it makes the situations look different. The other thing is round one, I was very surprised to see Mach 5s at a major.
Yeah.
I was very surprised.
You know what? And this is the part that killed me. Like, the irony of this was the funniest thing ever. You're watching them play on these Mach 5s, and then a commercial pops up for DGA about how you can upcycle baskets to the Mach 7.
Someone tagged me in that, and they said, do you think the major should have tried upcycling their baskets?
I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're telling me, like, you're going to play that commercial as you're watching. And, like, because if you're DGA, if I am DGA, and I even catch wind of a major being played on a course with my baskets, I am immediately shipping out my best basket to that course. Even if I'm going to take it away afterwards, whatever. Like, you are now going to have a major where, because like the Mach 5 is not meant to be a premium basket, but guess what? It's going to get ragged on.
Well,
like
it was in 1996,
right? And
when it came out.
It's going to get ragged on like it is. Like, is that not a no-brainer? Like, you're like, somebody from DGA is paying attention. You know, they see what.
Well, I don't think
picked.
DGA is really catching any flack for this right now. The
Well,
PDGA is a lot more.
Yes, I agree. I agree. It doesn't come down to DGA, but I'm just saying if I were DGA, that would have been a very simple solution.
No, I agree.
I'm shipping baskets out
if
there.
I'm the PDGA, when I'm looking at these courses,
that's part of the approval process.
Yeah, I'm looking at the basket, and I'm like, hey, you know what? We feel like these courses. Also, another thing these are like very nitpicky. So just hear me out here for a second. These are very nitpicky because I know they're things that wouldn't happen if this was USDGC or any other MPO only major.
Yeah.
These types of things wouldn't happen. Yeah. The T signs.
Yeah.
The T signs didn't even have trees on them.
Yeah.
It was I could have done it in Microsoft Paint. It was a red circle for the basket. Maybe not red, but it was a circle for the basket, a rectangle for the tee, and then it was just a lighter color green and then a dark color green. And that was it. Yeah. Like you couldn't see where major trees were. You couldn't see like distances. I think part of it is we talked about this some with Worlds last year when Worlds fell short a little bit. Part of it is the Pro Tour has put out such a good product for so long
that we're used to it now.
That things that used to fly don't fly anymore.
Right.
If I'm seeing, like, I was trying to look at the caddy book to learn these courses before the USWDGC preview. The caddy book showed me nothing. Yeah. Because I'm looking at green blobs. Yeah. I could see the shape of the fairway and the distance of the hole, but I couldn't see where danger was or anything.
Yeah.
It was awful. And then the baskets, again, like, are they bad baskets for going out and having a fun casual round with your friends? Absolutely not.
No, they're fine.
But we saw some awful spit outs. That, like, you're at a major. Like, and it's something where, is that basket PDGA approved to be played at a major? Yes. So from the technical standpoint, is there anything wrong with that? No. But again, those baskets came out in 1996. The amount of basket development that's happened so far.
Can you imagine them playing like on a basketball hoop from like 1996?
No, but like that's the thing is if you go to a park to shoot hoops, who cares when that basketball hoop was put in? When you're playing a national championship,
so funny.
That's not going to fly.
What are we doing?
But even like advertisement wise, I didn't feel like it's I feel like every year USWDGC we have a similar conversation where I didn't feel like it was a major.
Yeah.
I watched it. I know it was a major. I know Haley King just won a major. It just didn't feel it.
And the only thing that made it feel like a major was the pretty good coverage by the Disc Golf Network, not the PDGA.
I don't know. It gets under my skin a little bit when every year we come to USWDGC and every year there's something that I'm just like, this isn't up to, not even like this isn't up to a golf standard or other pro sports standard. This isn't up to the standard that we see at every other pro event. Yeah. And like, that just is, there's something to be said about that. And I don't know what fully there is to be said about it. I saw some people being like, well, like what's the PDGA supposed to do? Like it's the local courses that have those baskets. This wasn't Madison, Wisconsin, USWDGC. Yeah, this was the PDGA's USWDGC.
That's just it. When the Pro Tour is in charge of things, they go and they vet these courses out and they transform them. They do what they need to do. They make it happen. And the PDGA doesn't. The PDGA needs to have a major running committee that takes.
I think they do now.
But they probably do. But they need to have one that is more serious. That takes because right now it's like, well, if you have the right TD, it's going to work out. Robert Leonard ran the Champions Cup and it was great. But if you don't have the right people, it's just kind of a random thing. Whereas like they need to have a major committee. And that committee needs to take these things very seriously. Like they need to be out at that course, figuring these things out. Like, yeah, I mean, the basket thing it's pretty tough to think about.
Well, luckily they finished on a course that I thought was better than the first course. There was at least more chances of separation, and the baskets there were fully acceptable. There's nothing wrong with them. So the final 2 rounds left you with a much better taste in your mouth that you kind of forgot the first 2 rounds to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But the first 2 rounds, I mean, I was just watching the course and I was just like, it just doesn't. It's just the optics of it to a certain extent for a lot of it, because like the baskets, yeah, they might have cost a stroke here or there, but it's the optics of like players at home know what baskets are out there. They know what the best of the best is.
Right.
That's the Mach 5 just isn't the best of the best anymore.
Yeah, you're right when it's like it's such an obvious giveaway that the PDGA doesn't care that much with the women's event whenever they're playing on lower class baskets. Like that's just like and the T signs. Like it's just like it's just such an obvious dead giveaway that they didn't put as much effort into it as they could, because there are better things out there.
Well, the tough part though, I think, is again, it's tough to say the PGA versus like something else the PGA runs, because all they run are majors, and the majors are so dependent on what local community runs it to, which is the whole problem.
That's the problem.
Because what happens is we go Pro Tour event, Pro Tour event, Pro Tour event. Then we're at USWDGC, and it's just such a glaring difference.
Yeah.
The sponsorship signs, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really remember seeing sponsorship signs on the fairway in front of tees anywhere like that.
Yeah.
I saw some behind 18. I saw some like flags and stuff up back there, and I saw some behind the hole 1 tee. But like when you're on the course, there's a major championship going on.
Yeah.
You would think we're gonna have like sponsors. We're gonna have people paying to put their like little banners up or something somewhere.
And here's where you're gonna really tell. Like, this is where I remember last year specifically. Like, it's one thing when the event's going on, but just wait till October when they're playing the throw pink and and everybody's taking it 10 times. Even the players themselves are taking it 10 times more serious because it actually feels like a major.
Well, that's the thing is I wrote this.
It has nothing to do with the men are being there. It has everything to do with the way that event is run.
Exactly. I wrote this down because the tough part is, like, you might know this off the top of your head. Who won USWDGC last year?
Paige.
Okay, you didn't know it. Okay, because a lot of people you ask, and like throw pink women's, Missy Gannon won right away. When I was writing last year's, I was like USWDGC. I was like, who even won last year? And I was like, pretty sure it was Paige, but I had to think. Throw pink women's, I instantly remembered.
I mean, here's what I will say. I remember, and I was at Throw Pink Women's last year, but I remember very specifically a lot of the events that went down. Whereas you asked me to talk about the USWDGC last year, the only thing I remember, you know what I remember? Paige ranting about it.
Yeah, I remember Paige complaining about
That's it.
That's what I remember.
That's all I remember about it.
But Throw Pink Women's, like what's going to end up happening again is at the end of this year, Throw Pink Women's is going to happen. It's going to just be an A tier again. And that is going to feel more like a major as a viewer. As a player, it's tough to know. There's no way.
Winning Throw Pink basically got Missy Gannon Player of the Year. It was an A tier.
Yeah.
Because, she won the Pro Tour Championship, but without the Throw Pink, she wouldn't have, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very... And I get the counter argument to it, right, is U.S. Women's is like a celebration of just the women in the sport.
I am all for that.
And when you put it on the weekend of USDGC, it would get overshadowed.
I am so all for them having their own event.
Yeah.
It is so easy to do it, like, just do it better then.
Well, that's to me, the biggest thing is,
zero
like,
problem with it being
maybe do it on Winthrop the week before or something. I mean, it doesn't even have to be on Winthrop. Basically just...
Yeah. There's a lot of other courses.
You know what might come down to is maybe just let someone else run it.
Yeah.
Maybe let the Pro Tour take it over.
I don't know. It's bad.
I don't know. I don't know.
They got to do better.
I just am like, just keep this in your mind. Maybe take a picture of the T sign and keep it in your phone. And then when Throw Pink Women rolls around, just watch how they're treated on the course and everything. Because it's not like, oh, well, of course the T signs are going to be better. They're playing the same course as MPO. They're not.
It is such a wild thing.
Because, like, remember last year we played the course, right? We played Winthrop Gold, and we were out there watching the women. And then when the lead card would go through, Innova had a crew following behind the lead card that was picking up the tent, moving it back, and pulling the T sign that they put out for the women.
Yeah.
The women had separate T signs, separate T pads, and then they had tent, waters, all of that at like every tee. And Innova was treating the women the same as they treated the men's major, because they were, well, realistically, it was even more impressive how they treated the women because it was an A tier.
Yeah.
So, like, for an A tier, they could have just said, hey, it's an A tier. Your T pads are right there. Like,
it is such a weird thing that, like, there is a tour standard being set by specifically by like USDGC for the majors. Like, they're setting a standard, and then the Pro Tour is setting a tour standard. They're really starting to find their groove with like what the standard is. And then you see an event like this that is a major that kind of falls behind in ways, and it's just like, how is that happening? How's that being allowed to happen? That's what just gets me. Like,
Yeah.
Like there is a standard out there, and it just like there needs to be the utmost thought put into a major championship for the women like that. Like, it's a shame because I really enjoyed watching the event.
Yeah.
You know? It was a good.
No,
time.
at the end of the day, like the players, the coverage, all of that was incredible. Haley King won a major. None of that can be taken away, period. None of that, how the event goes down, all these things are very nitpicky.
The trophy sucked.
All these things are very nitpicky, but it's just, again, the optics to me of like, I'm watching it from home and I'm just like, it just didn't feel like a ton, and I know a ton of time and energy went in from the local community, but the PDGA, who would have the resources to design tee signs that actually have trees on them, to be like, hey, you know what, for this, you don't have to fully replace the baskets. You don't. We're going to bring in Innova as a title sponsor. Innova, can we just borrow 18 baskets? Oh, yeah. Innova probably 100% would have. It's been like, yeah, take 18 baskets, put them in. We'll pull the 18 baskets, bring them back. Is that logistically cost you a little more money? Yeah.
But it makes a very big difference.
Again, as I said previously, there was obviously a lot of money to be made out there because there wasn't any ad sponsorships going on the fairway anywhere. And it might just be something where the PDGA is like, well, the local TD raised, X amount of money. It's like, well, no, to me, the PDGA should be showing up a month before the event and like be on the grounds, making sure the course is ready, making sure the baskets are good, advertising. Because especially it was the biggest USWDGC ever, 300 plus competitors across 19 divisions, right? It was a massive event. Awesome. Great. We want to keep that going, obviously. But when you have an A tier that happens at the end of the year that feels more like a major and feels more like a U.S. champions being crowned, it really puts a damper on the U.S. women's, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, if I'm the PDGA, you basically have two options. You either fold and you give it to Innova. I think it's the wrong option, personally, because I don't think a company owning a major is a good idea.
Yeah, let's not do that anymore.
Or you step your game up and beat them at their own game.
Yeah.
And make when people step on the field, when they step onto the premise, it feels like, holy cow, this is the biggest event of the year. Right. This is massive.
It's one of those. It's another one of those like this is why the PDGA confuses people so much, because they should have so much money and resources because they have so many members that are paying them, and they're collecting. They're getting percentage fees for sanctioning, right?
Yeah. So
they're getting revenue, and then like I understand that they have work to do. Like, I talked to Nate Heinold about this. Like, I get it. There's a lot of administrative stuff that the PDGA does, sure. But like when you have I know they've got to have resources, and when you've got a chance to flex your resources, like a major to run perhaps, like look at what a company like Innova does. They're successful. They make a lot of money, I think. And when they got a chance to flex their resources, what do? They put on a crazy huge event. Like the PDGA. Look
at what Dynamic does with the Dynamic Disc Open.
Right. Like that's the thing. Like if the PDGA, if you want to show the people that you care, like if you want to show the disc golfers that you care and that you're using our money for things that we want to see in the sport, then like put on a really good major. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that would help.
Yeah. It was very, very interesting. But yeah, and we had the final point of like actually on the grounds, the coverage, all of this stuff, the event seemed very big, right? Like it seemed like there's a lot of interest out there, a lot of gallery out there. And, we've talked about at some point there's probably going to be a split because of the Pro Tour into a women's Pro Tour. Just because logistically, as both grow, eventually it's going to reach a point where it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
And so this kind of I don't want to say gave a glimpse, but to a certain extent kind of did, but it made you kind of think of like, what would this even look like? Now, obviously we just talked about all the things that, were bad about the event, but there's a lot of things great about the event. And, is it time for it? No, I don't think so. But I think that one of the big things that it would allow is it would allow courses to be designed and fully, utilized, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But designed is the biggest thing. Fully designed and manicured for the maximum performance and entertainment of the FPO field, to where you can be very strategic about when OB gets brought in or out. You can be very strategic about the distances. You can be very strategic about pin placements. All this to actually push and challenge them.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? I'm not fully sure.
Yeah, it's a developing thing, and it's gonna. I personally, I don't know if a perfect solution is ever going to be found until there is a separate tour for the women's game, because like you're never going to be able to specifically tailor things to their event until it's separate. And I think that it'll eventually happen, because here's the thing: it happened in golf, and it's very successful. The LPGA Tour, like there's golfers make good money. It's successful. There's viewership, so I think it can be done. And I think when I see an event like this go down, like I enjoyed watching the event a lot. I think that because of the amount of like silver series and stuff there is on the tour, I think they could even scatter it to where like the women are playing separate from big men's events, and like to keep the viewership even in that regard. But it's already separate streams, so they could still just play early. But I don't know. I think that'll be the direction it heads in eventually. But I think until then, it's just going to be a series of like, well, this becomes a problem, and that's a problem. Like, it's just going to be tough.
I think the toughest part is when the FPO field like the FPO at USWDGC had over 90 players.
Yeah.
A pro tour couldn't handle that to a certain extent.
Right.
Even if it's just streaming wise of the two separate streams, if you have 90 players going off, it starts to get later in the day to where both streams will be going on at the same time.
Yeah.
An FPO field right now on the pro tours tends to be around like 40 to 50, somewhere in there. So basically twice the size of a field. So if a touring field was created that was that big, I think that's when the issues start to happen. Is like you simply couldn't have both continue at the same thing and be as big as they could be. So at some point, they're going to have to split, and making that decision at the right time that they split and they're both able to be sustained and grow is going to be crucial. But very interesting. But let's go over some power rankings super quick. MPO obviously didn't play. FPO, we have a tough decision. Two tough decisions, really. I think, first off, Haley King, great win, major win, literally. Not good enough to sneak in the top 5, I don't think, for the power rankings. Just because the rest of her season has been pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, if she rattles off like one or two more decent finishes,
then she definitely could. So I think Missy Gannon stays, unless we want to sneak Owen Scoggins in. Will be the only other question.
Because Owen beat her again this week.
Owen did, and Owen's been having a pretty solid season.
Let me get the head-to-head up real quick.
All right, I'll explain to you the number one thing we're going to run into this week when doing the power rankings is the Paige Pierce Kristen Tatar 1-2. Paige recently jumped Kristen in our power rankings to get to number 1 in the world, and then finished with a 21st place finish in a major. And one of the gripes we had with other world rankings and stuff like that was when a player doesn't play, they shouldn't be able to just like consistently not show up and move up in the rankings. So it's basically a question of what the heck do we do with Paige and Kristen? Because Paige doesn't deserve the number 1 spot right now after finishing 21st at a major.
Right.
Kristen hasn't done anything. She can't play right now. So, like, does she just randomly jump back into number 1 without doing anything? It'd be Kat can't really jump because Val just beat Kat. So then does Val all of a sudden jump to the number 1 player in the world? It's a very interesting breakdown we have going on. But
so this year, Owen Scoggins is 5-3-1 against Missy. The only thing that Missy has going for her is that she has a win at the Music City Open.
A Silver Series?
A Silver Series. That's kind of what she has.
All right, so I think Owen Scoggins moves in.
I'm okay with that, yeah. Missy's got I think that Silver Series win is expired. Owen Scoggins has been too consistent, and she's beat her too
and
much.
she just came in 3rd at a major.
Yeah, so
Owen Scoggins, welcome to the top 5. 4th place, do we keep Val there, or does Val jump Kat?
I think Val now jumps Kat.
Okay, so 4th place, we have Katrina Allen. Okay, so then that puts Valerie Mandejano into 3rd, which then leaves us with the Kristen Page debacle.
Here, my thought on the whole thing is I agree with I don't like players being being promoted for not playing. However, I think if it's a scenario where if Paige, and it's even tougher because Paige won last week, because like it's one of those things where if Paige just does okay, like if she just comes in 10th, like we're not even thinking about this right now, but it's the fact that she played so bad. I'm so hesitant though because she won the week prior, literally won the week prior, and Kristen wasn't there. And now it also wasn't Kristen's fault, but
No.
I think we keep it, honestly.
We keep one too?
I'm starting to lean that we keep it because Paige just won. She just won last week.
Okay.
And Kristen wasn't there. I'm not ready to move it. Kristen needs to get back, and she's gonna.
Well, I guess because Val can't jump Paige.
What?
Could Val jump Paige?
No.
Okay.
No. Because Kristen will be back for Ledgestone or for Idlewild, right?
Hopefully.
I think.
I don't. It'd be very weird for her to be because she's still in Europe. The European Open is the week after Idlewild, right? Idlewild's this weekend.
Didn't she mention that she was trying to get back?
Idlewild's this weekend. Then there's the Sula
see if
Open and then European Open that are happening in Europe.
Let me see if she posted about it.
I think originally.
Apparently, she just turned 30.
Also, someone messaged me that she now has tested positive for COVID.
Oh, that's not good.
Within the last few days. But that's
she's having elbow pain too.
That was just
She's been
random
playing with painkillers.
That was a random Instagram DM, so don't fully trust me on my source there.
Well, yeah, apparently she's having elbow pain too.
Yeah, I did see that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead and say she's probably not going to.
Yeah, okay. We're just going to leave Kristen in second. I think
Kristen
a solid
is
performance
down right
solid
now, man.
performance from Val will move Val into second. I think is where we're at. But all right, so we'll keep Paige number 1, but Paige, you're on razor thin ice right now. Kristen in second, Val, Kat, Own. FPO top 5. All right, it's time for the fan favorite segment. Trevor's trivia. Typically, Trevor pits me against Connor, but today it's just me against me.
Yeah, so I was kind of messing around in Statmando this morning because they have a lot of interesting stuff for trivia. Statmando, by the way, shout out Statmando because I don't think they probably get enough credit for this website. It's really cool. So they do this Monday Fun Day thing where they kind of throw out a ton of stats from the previous week and just like all of PDGA tournaments worldwide. So they like the total cash that was made, how many throws happened, how many players played, rounds, how many 1,000-rated rounds even happened. And I think that's really cool. So I have got a few. We'll just. I think it'll be an interesting one, just because like you have some educated guesses probably, but also it's just fun to kind of look at.
We'll have educated guesses.
So the first question I want to ask is. I'm sorting this by North American state, as this also counts Canadian provinces as well. Which state? Let's see if you can guess like any of the top 5 states for total cash won in those states
For this past weekend, has to be Wisconsin.
That would be number 1. Yes.
Yeah, because $7,000 went to first.
$78,870.
Yeah.
Was exchanged. But then let's see if you can get any more of the top 5.
So outside of Wisconsin, North Carolina.
No, North Carolina is actually like halfway down the list. Only $1,800.
What's going on, North Carolina?
There's one that you could definitely guess.
California?
No. The other one. The other one that you would probably guess is a lot of,
Texas?
Yeah. Texas was at $7,000. Texas is in 4th place at $7,382. There were 16
Is Colorado
events.
Up there?
No.
What else is big up there? Ohio. No, Kentucky.
Kentucky, 8,466. There's one that you're not going to get, so I'll just say it, but it's Alberta, Canada. There was one event. There's one event, and it was $11,000 was exchanged. But that's actually really the more those stats are kind of misleading. The more interesting, the more relevant stat is how many events were played. In which case, North Carolina would have been second.
But only $1,800.
Yeah, they had 10 events, only $1,800 in cash.
So like only one pro event, basically.
I guess so.
That's kind of wild.
Wow, this is an interesting one. Which state had the most 1,000-rated? I'll just say this: which state had the? I'll tell you which state had the most 1,000-rated rounds, and you try to guess you just try and guess what was the most like of the state that had the most 1,000 rated rounds in the past week, how many do you think they had?
Okay.
So it was Kentucky, and they had. This is crazy. They had a lot more than the second place.
Okay. Kentucky had 21.
They had 59. Second place though was Texas with 18. So that's interesting. I don't know why.
Are Kentucky ratings inflated?
Now we're starting to ask the real questions.
Something to think about. I saw someone came after me on debate night. They called me a 940 rated player, and then said you'll never shoot, you'll never break 60 or shoot 60 at Trophy Lake Blues. We're going to Charleston next week, and so I was like, "This is from the same guy I thought was 940." I was like, "Then I'll definitely be able to." And then someone commented and said, "Well, they think you're actually 940 because all of your rated rounds are in Virginia." I was like, do people think Virginia ratings are inflated?
That is so wrong.
Right?
Well, at least in our area it is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, whenever I play an event...
If you get like 2,000 rated pros to your event, it's like a big deal.
Well, also, here. Like, I distinctly remember Nick Carl moving from Massachusetts down here. And he moved down here, and he was like, at the time, like 980, 990 in Mass, and then came down here, and I was 950, 960. And at tournaments, I was beating him. Obviously, now he's a much better player than me. At tournaments, I was beating him. And so I always gave him a like hard time because like he would go back to Massachusetts and be able to shoot like 990,000 rated. Then he'd come down here and shoot like 950, 960. It's not inflated. And so I'd always give him a hard time. I'm like, yeah, you're just playing with real ratings down here. Like these are Virginia ratings.
It just depends on it so depends
like people
on
were
your
looking
field. Our field is not look at the fields that Hunter's ratings came out of. Like I mean, yeah, if you go back to where he played like Ledgestone, but like
those are I played
that's
awful
not Virginia.
Ledgestone.
If you go to like his Virginia ratings, like he had to play well to get there.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting. People thought Virginia ratings were inflated when I've always thought Virginia ratings sucked.
They're not good. And he also had to play through 4 years of college ratings.
College ratings are awful.
All time.
Yeah, they
sucked. I got one more interesting question. This is how many countries were a sanctioned event played in the last week?
15.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15.
Heck yeah.
That is correct. Now, how many of them can you name before getting one wrong?
United States.
Yes.
Canada.
Yes.
Finland.
Yes. You got the top 3.
Those are easy. Now we're in tough part. How is there 15? It has to be just all the Norway.
Yeah.
Sweden.
Yes. You got the Scandinavians.
See, now we're in the tough part. There's 10 more of these things.
There's some like you should definitely get some of the other ones.
Well, I don't want to miss one though.
Yeah. There's still some other ones that you should get.
Trying to think of what I've said.
Like there's one that like you know for a fact that there's players from that country. Like there's 2 like that.
Is Estonia's in Finland? No. Estonia.
Estonia's a country.
Okay,
yeah.
that's a country.
That's 6.
Estonia. Man. Because I don't want to miss one. For some reason, Switzerland stuck in my head, but I don't think that's one. I'm going to say it. Switzerland.
No.
Dang it.
The others were Germany, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom.
I did say Netherlands.
No, you didn't.
I said Norway.
Yeah.
I said
the
Norway.
United Kingdom, Australia, Denmark, France, Italy, Japan, and Slovenia.
I would never got Slovenia.
That would have been a tough one.
I would never got Slovenia.
Probably not Denmark either. Or
Denmark.
France.
Denmark, if I would have thought of KJ Nybo, it would have happened.
Yeah, you could have got Japan and Australia and the UK. Probably.
Australia didn't even cross my mind.
You were there.
I didn't cross my mind.
You were at the event in Australia.
Was it the Australia? No, it wasn't the Australian Open. That just happened.
Maybe. Do they still play it?
Yeah.
They just give up?
Which is not a major.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they get any pros there anymore, really.
How funny is that? Well,
they used to have the Australian Open was a major at one point. The Konopiste was a major. Japan Open was a major.
Because the World Tour was a thing. Why did disc golf decide to play a major in Australia?
They did it every other year.
But that was the dumbest idea ever. Let's do a major that only like some of our players can afford to travel to.
I mean, that was the same with the European Open for a long time.
Yes, but Australia is so much further.
It was a very
Europe.
expensive trip. Yeah. I mean, it was paid for me because I went to film for a company, for Innova, but it was paid. But I still had to like book my flight, and it was very expensive.
Yeah. Wait, you were paid by Spin TV? You were doing stuff
I
for
was doing
Spin
the
TV?
McBeast Diaries.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I got my room board, all that.
Like that was such a weird idea. Like, yeah, let's go. Like, I understand, like having an event in Australia. Sure, that's great. Grow the sport. A major, that was stupid. Like, you can't. The fact that you can't call the Aussie Open like a major win. I'm sorry. There's not enough players there.
You can't.
I'm sorry, Paul. Subtract fake majors.
I think Ricky won the year I was there. It was Ricky and Eagle battling it out.
Choked.
Eagle choked it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that was back when Eagle was.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my
remember
Avery
Eagle McMahon, man. I remember that guy.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite Avery Jenkins lines. Was they like all week the locals there were talking about how hard this course was. It was a tough course. It was very cool. It was on a golf course, and the greens were sand with oil for the greens.
Yeah.
Because like it was the heat down there, they couldn't have kept grass alive.
Pick
Basically,
up your disc. It's basically putty in your hand.
Oh, it was incredible. But so I got to play it a few times. It was a very tough course. And they just had like the Australian Open like amateur weekend before, and like even was like 1,000 rated and all this stuff. And so it was like a very tough course. And so then the pros come out there and just lit it up. I want to say Ricky and Eagle shot like they were in the teens under par. And so it was in the era where like live scoring was a thing, but like you weren't really looking at it. So like the lead card had the like stanchion with them behind it, and so you weren't during the round paying attention much to. At least we weren't. I didn't look at what other scores were. So it was still like that era where you came into the clubhouse and everyone's like, "Oh, what'd you shoot? What'd you shoot? What'd you shoot?"
Yeah.
So I was walking with Paul's card.
that.
We finished and we came in and like everyone's like talking and like they're talking about how far under they shot, like 14 under, all this stuff, and all the locals are like freaking out. And Avery's like, "Yeah, man, nice little pitch and putt you got out there." And oh man, you can just see like the locals all like died laughing, but also on the inside they were just like so frustrated that the pros came and just ate their course alive.
It honestly, it all makes sense in my head now to why there are so many disc golf courses out there in the world that just stink because they're like impossible. And it's because for some reason, locals that design these courses only want them to be like impossible. They like love like, yeah, it really tore you up out there. Would you shoot like 6 over par? Like they just love that. And they're like, well, yeah, because there's 3 trees in the fairway, Mark. Like, of course I had shot 6 over par. It's not a fair course. Like for me, because like, guess what? I just went to North Cove and played a very fair course. And it was my favorite. Like, I had fun. People like courses when they have fun. There's a time where it's fun to play challenging courses. But like ultimately, you're going to go back to the ones that you have fun at. And that just cracks me up. Like they hate it. Like we went and had a battle at Diavolo, and like there was that one hole that everybody said was going to eat our lunch, and we parred it.
And we messed up the par.
And I had to throw I had to scramble to par it, and like we just didn't play it well, and we still parred it. And like these guys were acting like we were going to take a 12 on that hole. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, do you not like we play some pretty hard courses?
Yeah, we said something about they said something about the par 5, and I was like, well, we play New London.
And they were like, oh yeah,
I was looking at the distance. I was like, that would probably be a par 4 at New London.
And they're like, oh yeah,
and they're like, oh, we'll see if you're still talking like that after you play it. And then we like got through the hole, and I was like, that would definitely be a par 4 at New London. Like don't get me wrong, it was a hard hole.
We hit a tree like directly in front of us.
It was a hard hole.
We took a 5.
But it wasn't like it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen.
It's just this weird like sense of pride that like locals have, and like
well, I think what
they
it is
want
is
you
like,
to hate yourself.
Because I get this to a certain extent. It's like when people come in town, you it's your chance to like validate how good you are to a certain extent. So if you've shot an even at this course,
Paul only shot like 2 under here.
Yeah,
and I was able to shoot because I play it every single day of my life, so I get that.
Well, because like when Paul blew up at Camp Hideaway for that brawl, that one time, and then he proceeded to shoot like a ridiculous round the next round and almost won the thing. But I'll always have that moment where he shot like 2 over at Camp Hideaway, and I shot a 58.
Yeah.
Nothing feels better at Camp Hideaway than knowing when I shoot a 61. Well, Paul shot 62 out here once.
Yeah, he did that one time.
Yeah.
The worst round of his
It was the
entire
worst
life.
round of his life. Thank goodness for him it wasn't rated. But he did do it once.
It did happen.
So I think it's just that aspect of like knowing, well, okay, I mean, my 64 can't be that bad because Paul shot a 62 out here once. It's that, I think. It's just that vibe.
I think we should make an impossible course. Let's make like the hardest course in the world, dub it that, and it's just so unfair. All the greens are like sloped like super.
Let's just make Dunapay's dunes, but in the woods. There's just OB everywhere.
Dunes in the wood. Yeah, OB like super heavy.
The
OB
fairway's
course.
OB.
Yeah,
you have to be off the fairway to be in bounds.
No, there's this. I was just playing this course near the beach where I was. It's a 9-hole course, pretty fun. If you're ever in Surf City, check it out. But the final hole ended it was an elevated basket, kind of in like almost like a sandbox looking thing, whatever. And I thought to myself, what if you made a OB circle around the basket?
People have talked about that.
To where you have to make it. If it drops out, it's out of bounds. Like, that would be amazing. I want to see that.
We should do a challenge video like that where inside 20 feet is OB.
Yeah, why have we never done that for a video? That is so...
You have to putt from like 20 feet, and if you miss, it's OB.
Yeah, I guess that's the downfall to that, huh? Because this was an elevated basket, which made it a little bit easier to get away with, because you wouldn't throw necessarily a bullseye. It's harder to throw it in an elevator, but yeah, I guess that would be the downfall. But that's a good video idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great video idea.
We'll come back to
that.
Maybe
for the video, it's not OB. It's just like you don't get a stroke penalty. You just have to take it back to 20 feet.
If you land in.
So like if you throw your drive, the closest putt you're ever gonna have is 20-footer, and then if you miss your putt, it's not like, oh, now so I land my drive in, now I'm throwing three.
Again.
Yeah, you have to keep putting for 20 feet.
I say we back it up to 30 then.
Oh, so the circle's lava. You can't be inside the circle.
Lava. I love how often we come up with video ideas on the podcast. People are just in our minds. This is how it happens. We don't really think about these things.
Yeah, the circle's lava. So if you're inside the circle, you
think about that thumbnail. Oh my gosh.
You can't putt from inside the circle. That's a great video idea.
Circle's lava. That's going to do it.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hope you have a great July 4th.
Check out the Circle's Lava coming out soon.
Yeah, Circle's Lava coming out soon. If you haven't checked out our Freedom Collection, foundationdisc.com, this shirt's a part of it. That shirt's not a part of it. You can check that out over there. And we'll see you back here on Wednesday or Thursday for a preview of Idlewild that I believe is going down this weekend. One of my favorite tournaments of the year. You're not going to miss it.